Good morning everybody, this is Stephen Pugh of the Home Bible College. It's June the 10th and we're beginning our last few readings in the book of Esther, chapter 8. And this begins a new section in the book which I've called The Battle is Won. The Jews are victorious. Let me read from verse 1. On that day did King Ahasuerus give the house of Haman the Jew's enemy unto Esther the queen. And Mordecai came before the king, for Esther had told what he was unto her. And the king took off his ring which he had taken from Haman, and gave it to Mordecai. And Esther set Mordecai over the house of Haman. And Esther spake yet again before the king, and fell down at his feet, and besought him with tears to put away the mischief of Haman the Agagite, and his device which he had devised against the Jews. Then the king held out his golden scepter toward Esther. So Esther arose and stood before the king, and said, If it please the king, and if I have found favour in thy sight, and the things seem right before the king, and I be pleasing in his sight, let it be written to reverse the letters devised by Haman the son of Hammedatha the Agagite, which he wrote to destroy the Jews, which are in all the king's promised provinces. For how can I endure to see the evil that has come unto my people? Or how can I endure to see the destruction of my kindred? Then the king Ahasuerus said unto Esther the queen, and to Mordecai the Jew, Behold, I have given Esther the house of Haman, and him they that have hanged upon the gallows, because he laid his hand upon the Jews. Write ye also for the Jews, as it liketh you, in the king's name, and seal it with the king's ring. For the writing which is written in the king's name, and sealed with his king's ring, may no man reverse. Then when the king's scribes called at that time in the 3rd month, that is the month Sivan, on the 23rd day thereof, it was written according to all that Mordecai commanded unto the Jews, and to the lieutenants and the deputies and the rulers of the provinces which are from India to Ethiopia, 127 provinces, even unto every province according to the writings thereof, and unto every people after their language, and to the Jews according to their writing and according to their language. And he wrote in the king Ahasuerus' name, and sealed it with the king's ring, and sent letters by posts on horseback, and riders on mules, camels, and young dromedaries, wherein the king granted the Jews which were in every city to gather themselves together, and to stand for their life, to destroy, to slay, and to cause to perish all the power of the people and province that would assault them, both little ones and women, and to take the spoil of them for a prey. Upon one day in all the provinces of King Ahasuerus, namely upon the 13th day of the 12th month, which is the month Adar, the copy of the writing for a commandment to be given in every province was published unto all people, and that the Jews should be ready against that day to avenge themselves on their enemies. So the posts that rode upon the mules and camels went out, being hastened and pressed on by the king's commandment. And the decree was given at Shushan the palace, and Mordecai went out from the presence of the king in royal apparel, blue and white, and with a great crown of gold, and with a garment of fine linen and purple. And the city of Shushan rejoiced and was glad. Do you know, in all of the discussions that we have from time to time about the greatness of certain men and people in the Bible, when do we ever think about Mordecai? You see, the Persian Empire was the greatest empire of its day. And all of the countries round about, including the whole of the land of Israel, the Holy Land, was just a province of Persia. And guess who was second upon the throne? A Jew called Mordecai. Amazing. Amazing. Yeah. There are a number of people in history that are absolutely outstanding in every way. Mordecai certainly comes behind none of them in any of these matters. I can think of Daniel, who was the prime minister of Babylon next to the king. I think of Joseph, who was prime minister of Egypt next to the king. And I think of Mordecai. He also was prime minister of the whole world next to the king Ahasuerus. These men are absolutely outstanding, completely outstanding. In fact, what's true about all of these three men is this, is that in the biblical record there's no criticism of their character and no criticism of their deeds. Amazing. We think of the greatness of Abraham. We think of the greatness of David. David ruled a vast empire, but it wasn't as big as this. Abraham was just, a wandering shepherd, herdsman. Moses, he was a leader of the children of Israel. But he doesn't come anything like the power and authority of Mordecai. Now, verse 16, it says the Jews had light and gladness and joy and honour. Verse 17. Now, verse 17 is my password for today. It says, and in every province and in every city. Now, we notice when we say every province and every city, what we mean is every country and every city in every country. Whithersoever the king's commandment and his decree came, the Jews had joy and gladness, a feast and a good day. And many of the people of the land became Jews, for the fear of the Jews fell upon them. So there was a tremendous conversion to Judaism, and of course these men would have to be circumcised, and they would have to promise that they would keep the Mosaic law. So Judaism became a force in the world, a powerful force in the Persian Empire. Of course, we think of the Persian Empire as being an ancient empire, and that's true, that's exactly what it was. What we fail to recognize is the power that Judaism had in the Persian Empire. Amazing. The fear of the Jews fell upon them. This was the fear of the Lord, and it was the fear of the Jewish people. Now chapter 9. Now in the 12th month, and that is the month Adar, on the 13th day of the same, when the king's commandment and his decree drew near to be put in execution, in the day that the enemy of the Jews hoped to have power over them, though it was turned to the contrary, that the Jews had rule over them that hated them, the Jews gathered themselves together in the cities throughout all the provinces of King Ahasuerus to lay hand upon such as sought their hurt, and no man could withstand them, for the fear of them fell upon all people. The Lord allowed a situation to take place in which the fear of God gripped all of the enemies of God. Absolutely an incredible thing. Verse 3, and all the rulers of the provinces, the lieutenants, the deputies, the officers of the king helped the Jews, because the fear of Mordecai fell upon them. For Mordecai was great in the king's house, and his fame went throughout all the provinces. For this man Mordecai waxed greater and greater. Amazing. You see the power of Mordecai that had been given to him by Ahasuerus the king. His power became greater and greater. Thus the Jews smote all their enemies with the stroke of the sword, and slaughter and destruction, and did what they would unto those that hated them. And in Shushan the palace the Jews slew and destroyed 500 men. 500. So that's just within the palace. palace of Shushan, there were 500 enemies of the Jews. They were all destroyed. Verse 12. The king said unto Esther the queen, the Jews have slain and destroyed 500 men in Shushan the palace, and the 10 sons of Haman. What have they done in the rest of the king's provinces? And now what is thy petition, and it will be granted thee? Or what is thy request further, and it shall be done? Then said Esther, if it please the king, let it be granted to the Jews which are in Shushan to do tomorrow also according to this day's decree, and let Haman's 10 sons be hanged upon the gallows. And the king commanded it to be done, and the decree was given in Shushan, and they hanged Haman's 10 sons. And the Jews that were in Shushan gathered themselves together on the 14th day also of the month Adar, and slew 300 men at Shushan. So this is now, this is not the palace, this is actually the city. But on the prey they laid not their hands. The Jews didn't want their stuff. But the other Jews that were also in the king's provinces gathered themselves together and stood for their lives, and had rest from their enemies, and slew of their foes 75,000. But they didn't put their hands on the prey. They didn't want their stuff. And on the 13th day of the month Adar, and on the 14th day of the same, rested they, and made it a day of feasting and gladness. Verse 20. Mordecai wrote these things and sent letters unto all the Jews that were in all the provinces of the king Ahasuerus, both near and far, to establish this among them, that they should keep the 14th day of the month Adar, and the 15th day of the same yearly. And as the days wherein the Jews rested from their enemies, and the month which was turned into them from sorrow to joy, from mourning into a good day, that they should make them days of feasting and joy, and of sending portions one to another, and gifts to the poor. Now I want you to notice something here. Let me read the passage, I'll explain. The Jews undertook to do as they had begun, and as Mordecai had written unto them, because Haman the son of Hammedatha the Agagite, the enemy of all the Jews, had devised against the Jews to destroy them, and had cast pur, that is, a lot, to consume them and to destroy them. Now what he had done is he'd cast a lot to decide on the right day to bring about his evil plans. Wherefore, verse 26, they called these days Purim, after the name of the pure. Okay, I come down to verse 29. Then Esther the queen, the daughter of Abihail, and Mordecai the Jew wrote with all authority to confirm this second letter of Purim. And he sent the letters unto all the Jews, to the 127 provinces of the kingdom of Ahasuerus, with words of peace and truth, to confirm these days of Purim in their times appointed, according as Mordecai the Jew and Esther the queen had enjoined them, and as they had decreed for themselves and for their seed the matters of the fasting and their cry. And the decree of Esther confirmed these matters of Purim, and it was written in the book. Chapter 10, very, very small chapter. I was quite interested that this is probably the smallest chapter in the Bible, I'm not sure. King Ahasuerus laid a tribute upon the land and upon the isles of the sea, and upon all the acts of his power and of his might, and the declaration of the greatness of Mordecai, whereunto the king advanced him. Are they not written in the book of the chronicles of the kings of Media and Persia? For Mordecai the Jew was next unto King Ahasuerus, and great amongst the Jews, and accepted of the multitude of his brethren, seeking the wealth of his people, and speaking peace to all his seed. It's very interesting there, the book of the chronicles of the kings of Media and Persia. I don't know whether that book exists today. It would be very, very interesting to find out if that exists. And if it does exist, which I wouldn't think that it's impossible that it does exist, it would be fascinating for that book to be read. And when that book is read, we will find all about what King Ahasuerus did, and also all about the greatness of Mordecai and how the king advanced him. All these things will be written in the chronicles of the kings of Media and Persia. Well, God bless you. Look forward to speaking to you again tomorrow. Bye for now.